If you're looking for an MMORPG you actually want to get invested in, but you almost always end up stuck in the same generic bot-filled games, this video is going to hit exactly what you need. I'm bringing you only the best options and a definitive list of what's truly worth playing right now, so go ahead, hit that like button and come with me. The game that feels closest to World of Warcraft on mobile is a hidden gem called World of Kings.
Captured? Ogres are dumb. I have a good idea to trick them. Put on this ogre disguise. Pretend you...
As soon as you enter the map, the sense of nostalgia hits instantly. It draws heavily from World of Warcraft, from the race aesthetics to the massive open world you can explore, even flying. Just like in World of Warcraft today, you can run dungeons with up to 25 players, which is awesome. Boss mechanics require movement, positioning, and everyone playing their role properly as tank, healer, or DPS. The game has been around for a few years, so the server is full of veterans, but it's still very beginner friendly thanks to its accelerated progression system. One of the closest competitors to Diablo Immortal, and just as good, is a game that's kind of forgotten on the Play Store, UNDECEMBER. The core idea is very similar, a fully isometric camera and endless waves of monsters for you to defeat. But unlike its competitor, this game doesn't have fixed classes. You build your character however you want, shaping it through skills and gear. It's also very solo friendly. You can jump into dungeons and clear them at your own pace, but it's definitely more fun when you play with others. The game is crossplay and honestly it's way better than it looks at first glance. Tower of Fantasy is a great choice if you're looking for an MMORPG but also want a game with a strong story mode to follow along. If you don't remember, this is basically an MMORPG in a Genshin Impact style that got a lot of attention when it first launched. The truth is many players didn't like it at release because it was laggy, full of bugs and hard to run. However, it has improved a lot over time and is now much more playable. The developers removed some things players complained about, like certain gacha elements, and there are now fully PvP maps that aren't pay to win. Right now Tower of Fantasy is definitely worth getting into. TORAM Online has an incredibly loyal community, and that alone might be one of the biggest reasons for you to start playing. Unlike other games on this list, it doesn't have fixed classes. You can equip any weapon on your character and your playstyle will change based on that weapon. But if you're looking for a true old school MMORPG, this is exactly what you want. No autoplay and a much slower progression. Right now the game is available on both the Play Store and Steam. It's fully crossplay, has a solid player base and a very dedicated community like I mentioned. Players often help newcomers a lot, so you won't feel lost in the game. If there's one game on Android packed with players, it's definitely this one of the most populated MMORPGs out there, The Legend of Neverland. The world of Kabbalah is colorful and inviting, but don't be fooled by its cute style. Behind that look, there's a progression system that really rewards players who understand builds and team synergy. The game also doesn't stick too strictly to classes. Instead, it offers more hybrid options you can apply to your character. But what really stands out is the fairy system that follows and supports you throughout the game. It's the perfect MMORPG for anyone who wants something visually beautiful, lightweight, and flexible enough for both short and long play sessions. While playing this game, I noticed it has very old school mechanics for a 2026 MMORPG, but after looking into it, I found out exactly why that is. Sun Online is actually a remaster of an older MMORPG called Soul of the Ultimate Nation. Now, with the Origin version, the game goes back to its roots. It stands out for its much darker and more mature atmosphere. There are no bright colors or cute characters here. Unlike many games that focus only on a massive open world, Sun really shines in its instance mission system. You build your party, enter closed maps with clear objectives, and follow a strong narrative. It's a new game, but it definitely has the potential to become a major mobile MMORPG. I've never met an MMORPG player who didn't like SKYLORE, and that's pretty interesting, so let's talk about it. One thing I really like about SKYLORE is that you're not locked into a rigid system. The base classes like Guardian, Alchemist, or Shadow are just the starting point. The talent and skill system lets you reshape your main abilities and change your role. The map is divided into zones, and exploration really rewards players who enjoy doing quests and discovering secrets, but things get intense in the open world conflict zones, and SKYLORE's PvP is fast-paced and demands real skill since there's no autoplay. I think what might push some players away is the graphics, but it's really just a matter of getting used to them and enjoying the great game it is. The first time I played this game, I had no idea it was actually based on an anime. Now let's talk about SAO integral factor. big difference here is that you don't play as Kirito, you create your own character and experience an alternate story. That's great because you don't need to watch the anime to understand or enjoy this MMORPG. I personally never watched it and was still able to jump in and play just fine. You're one of the beta testers who must fight to survive and clear all 100 floors of the floating castle. It also features a unique system where you equip skill records, cards attached to your weapon that completely change how you play. This is a new MMORPG from 2026 but built with classic ideas, and you'll see exactly what I mean. It was created with the goal of modernizing the experience of older games like Knight Online, where you choose between two factions and are constantly fighting players from the opposing side. The world is vast and dangerous, designed to encourage player encounters. The threat of surprise attacks is always there, which makes grinding much more intense and exciting. The combat is solid and interesting, and it's worth noting that the game is still new, which might explain why it doesn't have a huge player base yet. Out of all the Ragnarok games released in recent years, I think this is the only one that really succeeded. So let's talk about Ragnarok Origin Classic. If you've played on PC before, this game blends both PC and mobile gameplay. You get all the classic classes you'd expect in Ragnarok, like Warrior, Archer, and many others. You'll be grinding a lot of monsters, but there are also quests to complete. The game feels like a hybrid between the original PC experience and a modern mobile version, and the number of players still active shows that it's one of the few Ragnarok titles that truly stayed alive. POKEMMO isn't on the Play Store because it's basically a fan-made game, but it's still absolutely worth checking out because it's really good. Imagine someone took an older Pokemon game and turned it into a full MMORPG. That's exactly what you get here. The game keeps the classic story mode, but now you also have other players around sharing the journey with you. On top of that, the game includes newer Pokemon and even some exclusive story content. The best part is playing alongside other people while catching all the Pokemon you already know and love. If you grew up playing classic MU back in the 2000s, MU Origin 3 will give you a reality check in a good way. The biggest change here besides the visuals is the freedom of movement. For the first time in the franchise, the world is fully 3D and you can actually fly. It's not just cosmetic, but don't worry, the core of MU is still all about grinding and loot. The progression system is fast-paced and you feel yourself getting stronger every minute, and honestly, I've always been more of a Ragnarok fan than MU, but it's undeniable that MU Origin 3 is one of the biggest MU releases on the Play Store in recent years. If there's one MMORPG that's truly stunning, it's this one. Let's talk about Moonlight Blade. Even before you start fighting, you'll spend hours in the character creator. Facial customization system is so detailed that you can tweak almost every tiny feature. It's seriously impressive. Another thing I really like about this game is how different its classes are. Instead of the usual warrior or archer, you get unique classes that you probably haven't seen in other MMORPGs. The game world is also very impressive and feels alive with lots of NPCs, quests, and plenty of things for you to do.
来吧。
It's crazy how many players this game has. It's easily one of the most populated on this list, and I'll explain exactly why. This is MIR4. You can start solo, but you'll quickly realize that to truly grow and control the map, you need a strong clan. The heart of the game is dark steel. This resource drives everything. It's used to craft gear, upgrade your abilities, and it's the core of the economy. Whoever controls the mining valleys controls the server. That's why battles in the Hidden Valley are so intense. However, I did find out the game has NFTs. Even so, from my experience, it's still a very solid and complete MMORPG that delivers a great overall experience. Well, this is a game that's kind of hidden on the Play Store, maybe because of its graphics, but I honestly think it's much better than it looks. HEARTWOOD Online can hook you right away. It's an open world, cross-platform RPG focused on simplicity. There's no annoying tutorial or cluttered UI. You pick one of 4 classes and jump straight into exploring the world. What I really respect about HEARTWOOD is that it doesn't force you to just fight. The profession system is the heart of the game, and most of the items you'll find are actually crafted by other players, so it also offers almost endless loot, and it's definitely an MMORPG worth checking out. Honestly, I'm not even sure if this game can truly be considered an MMORPG, but one thing is certain, Game of Thrones, KINGSROAD is amazing. Just like Sword Art Online, which we mentioned earlier, the game takes place in the Game of Thrones universe, but you don't need to watch the series to understand it. That's because you create your own character from scratch and help people across the world. The game is a bit limited when it comes to classes, but the combat is extremely well done, and graphically it's one of the most beautiful games on this list. It features areas where you'll run into other players, giving it an MMORPG feel, as well as zones you can play completely solo. If you played MMOs back in the 2000s, you definitely remember Madrigal. FLYFF Universe is the triumphant return of one of the most iconic games of all time. This game feels like a classic 2000s RPG with a fresh new look, almost like a remaster. You hop on your broom or board and freely explore floating islands. The class progression is also traditional. You start with a base class and evolve it over time into more advanced ones. The combat is the good old point and click style focused on grinding and item drops. It's basically a classic MMORPG experience that you can now play on your phone. This is one of those MMORPGs where you take one look and instantly understand how it works, and let's talk about Evil Lands. Unlike those MMOs filled with autoplay buttons and visual clutter, Evil Lands focuses on direct action combat. That also makes sense since the game originally launched back in 2013. It's quite old but still active today. The game is built around different maps and missions. You enter an area, complete objectives, and take on powerful bosses. What's cool is that even though it's mission based, you still share the world with other players. It's one of those simple MMORPGs from 2013 that still manages to deliver what many modern games can't. Another MMORPG with strong roguelike elements. Let's talk about this new game called Dungeon Cross Relic Hunter. This is one of those games where you wouldn't even guess it's an MMORPG until you jump in. The moment you enter the main city, you'll see tons of players. It's impressive how popular the game is right now. You can choose between around 4 or 5 different characters, and all missions revolve around loot and grinding. The gameplay, especially the combat, feels very similar to a roguelike. Honestly, I really like this game. It's very impressive, and it's the kind of experience you could easily keep playing in an endless grind. This is one of those MMORPGs that mixes survival mechanics with a full MMO experience. Let's talk about Dragon and Home. The first thing worth mentioning is how it can confuse a lot of players at the start. When you jump in, it almost feels like Minecraft in an MMORPG format. You'll see other players doing the same things as you, and one of your first tasks is gathering stone and wood, just like in Minecraft. As you progress, the game evolves a lot, turning your character into a proper class-based build. Over time, it really becomes a complete MMORPG experience. The only downside for me is exactly that mix. You have to balance gathering resources while also fighting giant bosses with your friends. Another game that's a bit hard to strictly call MMORPG, but it's still worth putting on the list. Is Crystal of ATLAN. Like some of the older MMOs, you have talked about it. You start the game is surrounded by other players, but most of the missions are done solo. It feels more like an action RPG with the open map to explore, while you still having other players around. Without a doubt, what really stands out, which is this fluid combat, a very satisfying hack and slash system. And of course, if you want, you can complete mission in co-op and even jump into PvP, which is also pretty fun in this game. This is one of the hardest MMORPGs I've ever seen on the Play Store. Let's talk about Born Again Online. One really interesting thing about this game is that it also works like a roguelike. You create your character and drop into a world full of other players. Missions can be done both solo and in co-op, but here's where things get tough. You can't die. Just like in a roguelike, if your character dies, you lose everything. Not just your items, but your entire character as well. It's an extremely challenging game, and if you're into hardcore MMORPGs, this one is definitely for you. If you are into martial arts movies and that epic oriental aesthetic, Blade Soul Revolution is the MMORPG for you. The first thing that stands out is its movement system Wild Walk. You don't just run, you glide through the air, run across water, and move through the world with a level of freedom that feel mobile MMO delivery. One of the core strengths of the game is its combat. Unlike typical MMORPGs where you just tap buttons, where you have a combo-based system that feels much more skill-driven and true to martial arts. The endgame is driven by rivalry. You choose between info 2 factions and explore the world while hunting down your enemies. Maybe you have seen ads for this game and wondered if it actually works. Well, in Albion Online it's absolute dude. The game delivers some of the most complex systems, and when it comes to gear and character building, since everything in the world is crafted by the players themselves. You can be a high-ranking warrior or just someone who trades goods and makes a lot of money that way. And the best part is the massive players base, which keeps the economies very stable. This is a game is highly recommended if you want to truly get invested in an MMORPG. This is basically an indie MMORPG that really need more players. It's called AEROTALES. The combat game is action focused and keep you constantly engaged. You can choose between classics like warrior, archer or mage, but the real fun comes from skill customization and how you combine your gear. What surprised me the most about AEROTALES is how much it invest in the social side. It's not just about fighting monsters. You also have housing, farming, and even a music system. That said, I don't have to mention that the game currently has a smaller player base, but that's not due to lack of quality. It's actually a very impressive game. That is it. Now you have got at the best MMORPG to play right now. Pick your favorite and I will see you next video.